for you. Oh, very good. And that was a good reminder for us.
Sorry, I forgot that.
That's okay. Good. All right, very good. So here we are coming into a comfortable seat. So I have this meditation chair, but just so that you can have a better sense of how I'm seated, I will back up a little bit. And it might be nice to have your bolster or a block to sit onto. Maybe easy cross-legged seat, maybe seated on your shins, and then just find a really nice tall spine. I will also say that Kerry is lovely and kind enough to monitor the chat while I'm guiding practice. So if questions come up, or if at any moment you can't hear me or see me, feel free to put that in the chat so that we can make sure that everything is up and running. And then similarly, if you have any revelations or questions as they come up, feel free to put those in the chat as well. So you can kind of come into your seat, wriggle in, as I like to say, allow your hips to settle, and for that really nice tall spine. And then if you feel comfortable, close your eyes. Just allow the breath to come as it may, in and out through the nose. And just start to observe, first and foremost, as our attention is to Pitta, what the temperature of your body is, if you can kind of tune inward and feel for your internal body. And then start to observe how that transmits into the temperature of your skin. And then maybe just hover away from the skin and then see if you can feel for the temperature just above the skin, almost at the hairs of your skin. And then perhaps little by little, just allow a softening, particularly in the space across the brows, into the jaw. Notice if there's any residual holding in the shoulders. So allow the shoulders to drip away from the earlobes. Maybe a smile comes across the face. I'm joyous to be here and now. And so you can continue with a nice steady breath. I will invite Satali Pranayama, or cooling breath. And if you aren't familiar, I'll guide you through. If you happen to have been born with a tongue that curls up sort of like a taco, you kind of curl the outer edges of your tongue. I don't happen to have that ability, so I can't show that for you. But if you have it, you know it, or if you don't, you've probably seen it. The outer edges are curling up. And then if you don't happen to have that tongue like myself, you can do so by pursing your lips, and then perhaps you even bring the tongue to the roof of your mouth. And so you'll sort of sip in like you're sipping in through a straw, breathing in. Through the mouth, and then as you exhale out the nose. And then purse the lips, or find your little tongue roll up, sip in through the mouth. And exhale out the nose. Let's do just once more. Inhale through the mouth. And exhale out the nose. And then allow that cooling breath to release, and just allow the breath to flow freely. You can keep the eyes closed or have a soft gaze. You can start to turn your right palm to face up. And then bring your thumb towards your index finger. We'll find a mantra. Start to tap the thumb towards the index finger, saying peace. Tap the thumb towards the middle finger. Say to yourself, begin. And then tap the thumb to the ring finger, with, to the pinky knee. So peace, begins with me. To the thumb, to the index finger of peace, to the middle, begins, to the ring, with, to the pinky, me. You can go on your own, like so, and just tapping. Let it be really meditative. And just notice if perhaps just shifting into a more peaceful, a more parasympathetic nervous system, you can start to allow the heat from within and the heat from without. It's not just the physical heat, right? It's also perhaps holding in our digestion. Maybe it's a holding of emotion, of anger, resentment, or a resistance to forgiveness. And so meditating with this mantra, peace begins with me, we can help to circumvent, to allow for that state of calm, that state of peacefulness. And just finding peace begins with me just twice more on your own. And then once you're complete, allow your hands to rest comfortably on the lap. You can keep your eyes closed or have a soft gaze. We'll inhale, arch through the spine, open up, find a seated cow pose. And exhale, rounding through the spine, melt the heart down. And then inhale, arching through the spine, open up through the heart, find freedom. Exhale, rounding through the spine, release something. And just one more time on your breath. And then following this third cat pose, just start to aliven this movement. So you can keep your eyes closed, just start to move in a way that just feels really joyous for you. This could be coming into hip circles or shoulder dips. Just allow the movement to be really fluid. Sometimes it's nice to dip one shoulder or the other, take a head roll, to take a couple more breaths to move in a way that feels really nice. So thinking of like internal massage for the organs. And then coming back through stillness once you're complete. On an inhale, circle the arms out and up, extend the fingertips to the sky. I'll mirror you here. As you exhale, drizzle the left fingertips down by your side as you reach the left arm up and over. Find a nice side body stretch. Reach, 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 reach. Plugging the left sit bone down. And then allow the top arm to drizzle down and around, coming into the seated forward fold. Tense the fingertips in front of your cross-legged legs. And then inhale, think of like cow pose or almost like a cobra pose into the heart. And then exhale, releasing down. Inhale, shine the heart through. Just get a little bit more space, almost kind of like a seated Sphynx pose. And exhale, rounding in. Take one more time. Inhale, find a little bit of space. And exhale, letting it go. Releasing your third eye towards the earth. Just take a moment here and then guide your hands underneath the shoulders. Begin to drift your way back up to seated. Allow your head to remain heavy. Very slowly begin to rise your way all the way up, rolling the shoulders up, back, and down once you get there. Take a moment sitting up really nice and tall. And then switch the crossing of the legs, bringing your opposite shin in front if you're in an easy cross-legged seat. Sitting up really nice and tall. Inhale, circle the arms out and up. Maybe shine the heart open to the sky. As you drizzle this time, the left fingertips down by your side as you reach the right arm up and over. So think of this as like a combing out through the side body. So we're uplifting to tether down. And then you can almost exaggerate the right sit bone rooting so that you elongate, create more space into that right side body. Allow the top arm to take you down and around, come into that forward fold over your cross-legged feet, and then inhale, shine the heart through. As you exhale, bow the brain, let it go. We'll inhale, slither the heart through, get a little bit more spacious, trying to keep the sits bones tethered. And then exhale, releasing your way down. Let's go just one more time. Inhale, find a little bit more space. And exhale, folding your way down. Release your third eye to the earth or to a block or something. If you're in a chair, you can rest your head on your hands, finding your pathway. And then allowing the head to remain heavy, guiding your hands underneath the shoulders. And then as slowly as you can, it's a slow motion inquiry to guide your head above the hips. You rise up with curiosity, with grace, rising at the top. We'll inhale, draw the shoulders up to the ears. Exhale, roll the shoulders back and down. Let's go twice more like this. Inhale, shoulders up to the ears. And exhale, roll them back and down. One more time. Inhale, shoulders up to the ears. Exhale, roll them back and down. Just feel for the most amount of space between the earlobes and the shoulders. And then just really subtle drawing in of the navel towards the spine. Drawing your awareness of your solar plexus here. So this space just a couple inches above the navel. Maybe you even place a palm there. See if you can feel for a certain amount of heat in this area. Maybe you feel cool. Just notice the temperature. And then gently, lightly release that hand down onto your lap. We'll circle the arms out and up, extend the fingertips to the sky. Nice, easy twist to the left. So starting yin direction today. Actually, I'm going to mirror you here. So twisting to your left, bringing your right hand to the outside of the left leg. And then if you're in a chair, you can use the back of a chair to kind of leverage yourself around, or tenting those back fingertips behind you onto your bolster, whatever prop you're sitting on, or even onto the earth. So bringing things out to stimulate this pacification into the solar plexus area, this area of digestion. And then focusing also on the fire, the Agni here, noticing where the fire is helpful, and then noticing where it can get a little bit inflamed, right? And so just finding that perfect amount of fire that is of service to you. Let's take just 2 more breaths in this twist here. And then keeping your right hand where it is, we'll unwind the twist, bringing your left arm on top of the right. So you're crisscrossing your arms, hands on opposite legs, and then start to round in. Guide your elbows out either direction, and then feel for this joyous separation of the shoulder blades. I like to think of wings emerging from my shoulder blades here, this ability to perhaps one day I could fly out of this shape. Breathe here, just 2 more breaths. And then you'll keep your left arm on top of the right. Keep your hold, take a hold of opposite shoulders here. And then on an inhale, eyes your way up, guide your elbows to the height of the shoulders. You can say like so with opposite elbows or opposite shoulders rather, or perhaps you bring the backs of your hands to touch or your palms to connect for eagle arms. Staying in stillness or inhale, extend your elbows up towards the sky, crack the heart open. And then as you exhale, round into the spine, spilling your way down, perhaps you bring your pinky towards the earth, trying to keep your sits bones tethered as you go. And then ride the wave, just a little bit of yang energy to bring you up, rise your elbows towards the sky. And then exhale, rounding your way in. And then taking just 1 more round on your breath, finding this really nice uplifted quality as you rise. And then this really nice introspective, internal energy as you round. Noticing that we need both to thrive, and then finding that balance even in this movement. We'll come back to center, unravel, unfurl. This is my favorite part, releasing the arms out and up, extend the fingertips to the sky. close your eyes if they aren't already, and then think of like slow motion waterfall. Allow the arms to drizzle their way down. So think water, think like beautiful water, maybe picturing yourself in Costa Rica. That's where I am. Just finding a waterfall. Maybe you're in the Northeast. There's beautiful waterfalls all over the world. Just find your perfect place to stand under your waterfall. And just allow for this really nice imagery of extinguishing maybe a little bit of extra fire, letting that pacify for yourself. Allowing the hands to rest comfortably onto the lap, sitting up nice and tall, elongated spine. So nice. And then once more, we'll switch the crossing of the legs, bringing your original shin in front. If you are sitting on your shins this whole time, if you want to extend your legs long, feel free to find a leg configuration that feels friendly for your joints. We'll inhale, circle the arms out and up. And then we'll find that twist to the second side, to our yang side, our side of a little bit more fire, right? Noticing how these energies in our yoga practice and our chakra focus and our Ayurveda focus are all interconnected. Notice if you can find just a little bit more lift. Feel for really nice uplift of that tether from the crown of the head, lifting you up as you ground down. Good. So keeping your left hand where it is, unwind, bringing your right arm on top, take a hold of the opposite leg, and then begin to curl into yourself. Feel for this expansion of the back body. Really try to separate the shoulder blades apart. Open, open, open through the back body. Let the head just hang super heavy. And then keep the crossing of the arms, keep the fold, take a hold of opposite shoulder, and then come to rise your way up. Same options apply. Perhaps you keep a hold of opposite shoulders. Perhaps you find your eagle arms, maybe this side, you do something different, right? Embracing that each side has a different experience to have. And then on an inhale, arching through the spine, open up. And exhale, rounding it out. Maybe you go a little bit deeper, a little bit less range of motion this side. Go twice more on your breath. Maybe you decide this side that you don't take the cat pose at all and you linger in stillness. So this is a more sort of motion-filled, yin-inspired practice. So certainly more movement than habitual, just to kind of move some energy around, and then we'll close with one yin stretch. And then coming back to center once you are complete, finding your unravel and furl, reaching the arms out and up, extend the fingertips to the sky, close your eyes, come back to your waterfall, allow, almost like coming into that really nice summer rain, right, where you find yourself and you just surrender to getting completely soaked. Find yourself there, just allow it to happen. It's happening, and it's like a freedom. It almost like breaks the heat, the power of nature, just giving you a little bit of respite from the fire. Allowing the hands to rest comfortably onto the lat. Just take a moment to allow for all of that to settle. And then we'll close in a really nice caterpillar shape. So the invitation is to extend your legs out nice and long in front of you. So perhaps sometimes it's nice to have your bolster or your pillow underneath your knees, depending on the friendliness of your hamstrings today. Feel for what support you want. Sometimes it's nice to have a little blanket underneath your sit bones as well. I invite you to have a nice soft bend in the knees. It's not about straightening the legs per se in this shape, but rather just allowing for a nice curling in, a nice bowing in. And then perhaps you have blocks or books, or if you have containers, or you can get creative, whatever you have around to rest your forearms. You can bow your head. If it feels more supportive, you can always build a little block tower to rest your third eye on. So you could alternatively be here, resting your forehead comfortably. So find for the version that suits you. And you can kind of wriggle your way into it, find a friendliness. We'll just be here for a short hold. Allow the head to really release the holding. I like to visualize here that all of the musculature in the face gets really soft here. And there's almost this peacefulness of the non-doing. Just really tuning in and tapping into and really allowing for that peacefulness. If you'd like, you can return to our mantra, tapping the fingers. So it's the thumb to the index finger to the middle finger and to the ring finger to the pinky with each word. So peace begins with me. You can say this aloud if you'd like, or you can say it silently to yourself. Sometimes connecting the touch of the fingers helps to anchor the mantra, the mind meal, to keep you in the here and the now. Just 5 more rounds here. If you're quite enjoying the shape, you're welcome to stay. If you're ready to be guided out, you can slowly begin to let your head remain heavy and slowly start to guide your way up, coming into a seated position, guiding your shoulders over your hips, your head over your shoulders, sitting up as tall as you ever have. Perhaps keeping your leg extended if that feels natural. Otherwise, you can adjust your legs or have your hands behind you for more support. And we'll just close with a collective breath. Finding your way perhaps to your original seat or your newfound seat with just a little bit more water in your fire space. If you'd like, joining palms together to touch at heart space, we'll take a collective breath in through the nose. And let that last bit of heat go out the mouth. Thank you so much for practicing with me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you are very content in your seat, please feel free to remain there. I will shift to turn it over to Kerry Harling of Holistic Highway to guide us in our Ayurveda talk. And then if you have any questions during this talk, feel free to put that in the chat and I'll organize those for our closing questions at the end.
So thank you very much, Veronique. That was a wonderful yin practice. So even though I was monitoring chat, I think everybody was into it. So I was doing it here, even though I'm standing up. So it felt really nice. So thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can do this. And let's start from the beginning. Great. So How is everybody doing? Just put in chat how you feel after that practice. And maybe it wasn't a practice for you to do this morning. Maybe, you know, this is what you're going to do later on today, but it was a wonderful Pitta practice, all those references to water and cooling the Agni or cooling the fire. So that was wonderful. So thank you, Veronique. But welcome to the sort of second part or the middle part of our little program that we put together for you on healthy living made easy with Ayurveda. But I do want to know where you're from today. So some of you I recognize, there's many of you that I know, some of you I don't know. And so just put in the chat, where are you from? So I can just sort of see. We've gone out to all over the place. So I'd love to see where you're from as well, just as you transition into sort of the next part. So feel free to take this time, go get yourself some water while I go over some of the things that we're going to sort of make this a really good webinar for you. So first off, let's just turn off anything that's operating in the background. So things like Skype, iTunes, or any extra programs, they're going to slow things down for you, and they're going to make it more difficult for you to be able to hear and do everything. This is your opportunity. If you haven't already, silence your cell phone. There is no emergency that is going to happen in the next hour for you. Close your door, kick the kids out, kick the dog out, give yourself this time to discover some new strategies on Ayurveda, on immune boosting, and just on health as well. And then you are muted right now. So if you've been chattering away to Veronique or me, hoping that we would notice you, we can't hear you. But as we said, we are recording this webinar so that you can watch it as a replay. But rest assured, none of your information, which is why we don't have you on video, none of that information is going to appear on the final webinar. We'll send the link out after this too, in an email, so that you can rewatch it anytime or share it with your friends. And stay on until the end, because two wonderful things are going to happen. One, I'm going to give you information on how to sign up for a free skincare facial serum. This is our signature product, came out of the Ayurveda Sanctuary. Those of you who have been with me there, that's our phenomenal retreat. So one of you will get one of these, and Veronique, more importantly, is going to just take us through a really nice closing sequence as well. So let's start out by asking you some questions, and feel free to raise your hands. You can just nod, you can talk in the chat, and I'll take a look at that in just a minute. But how many of you feel that life is a struggle? How many of you drink coffee in the morning to just get your day started? Yeah, so now the hands start coming up. How many of you work through lunch? Do you crave sweets, caffeine, chips, bread, or a nap in the afternoon? And how many of you have tried losing weight in the past 3 years and just given up? How many of you tend to have bouts of worry, anxiety, or even depression? It's been a crazy sort of couple of years we've been going through. Do you have difficulty remembering things? Just put a yay, that's me. And how many of you finish your day feeling like you were hit by a bus? Do you in fact wake up tired without the motivation to get up and go? So yeah, I can see that there's a lot of people relating to this. Now, there may be many reasons for these concerns, and one very simple solution is that you are living out of sync with the natural cycles. So it's really quite simple. Connect your cellular clock or your sort of biorhythmic clock with the natural ebb and flow of nature cycles, and you get to live a life of balance and vitality. But you know what, when we ignore these cycles of nature, we disturb our inner clocks, and then life becomes a struggle. So for those of you who do not know me, and Veronique sort of introduced me wonderfully, my name is Kerry. So hi there. I come from London, England, which is why I have a slight accent. I am not a doctor. I'm an Ayurveda practitioner. Actually, I'm an integrative practitioner. So I don't have expensive equipment. I only run a few lab tests, but I do use my training in Ayurveda, and I use information. I educate. So I help people balance their health through diet, lifestyle, and herbs. And I also, in a big way, just help people slow down. So here in the US, just to give you a little bit of background, there are a couple of levels of Ayurveda. There's the lifestyle counselor who deals mainly with nutrition. And then there's the Ayurveda practitioner like me, and they have clinical training. So I have graduate degrees in Ayurveda, neuroscience, also in education. But I am the only Ayurveda practitioner that's affiliated with a consortium of academic health centers for integrative medicine. And as some of you know, that includes my own facility, which is the University of Pittsburgh Center for Integrative Medicine. And here in my clinical practice, we really focus on the science behind this system of medicine. That way we can really get the benefit of Western thought, Western technology, Western diagnostics, testing, along with that more Eastern philosophy that says a personalized and preventative approach is the way to go. So where do I do all this? So you can see that I have a book, the 25-day Ayurveda Cleanse, which you can get anywhere that you can buy books. So Amazon, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble. I also have my own company, the Holistic Highway, and I'm part of UPMC, which is the University of Pittsburgh Center for Integrative Medicine. I have a TED Talk out there, so you're welcome to look at that, about how we need to change our healthcare system. And I also run the Ayurveda Sanctuary, which is our phenomenal retreat that we do once a year. This is our DNA-based longevity retreat. And this is actually where our facial serum first came out of. This was one of the products that we used to give to each person that came to the Ayurveda Sanctuary. And then everybody loved it and kept asking us more and asking us more. So I thought this would be a perfect thing to give away today. So this is where I do everything, but Ayurveda has taught me that nourishment or health is far more than what you look like, what your latest weight is, or about the latest twinges. It's about feeling undeniably vital, both inside and out, physically and mentally. And there are so many people out there who ignore the signs that something's wrong. Maybe it's a pain here. Maybe it's just a slight headache there. Maybe you're not sleeping as well as you used to. Maybe your digestion's playing up, just every now and then. And then one day you wake up and you realize that you just don't feel yourself anymore. You put it down to getting older. Maybe there's another bug going around, like we need more bugs, huh? And when you have time, you'll do something, maybe take some vitamins, perhaps eat some more veggies, perhaps try and get a good night's sleep. So let me now ask you another couple of questions. And the first one is, when was the last time you felt truly vibrant? How far back do you have to go? Maybe for some of you, it was this morning. That's great. Maybe you still do. Maybe for some of you, it's like, yeah, that's a couple of years ago. Maybe it was before kids. I mean, they do a number to our vitality. Maybe you have to go way back. So when did you last wake up in the morning brimming with energy? Just tell me in chat where that happened to be. I recently came across a saying that goes something like this. Those who do not have time for their health today will soon have to find time for their sickness or disease later. Does that ring true for you? Does that kind of make sense for you? Because I lived that. After years in higher education, ultimately leading colleges to success, that's what I used to do, I found myself personally burned out. I was stressed, my weight was up, my joints hurt, I was not sleeping well, used to wake up sort of 3 o'clock in the morning. I then developed digestive problems. I still remember driving to work one day and having to pull over on the side of the road to throw up because I felt so bad. My moods were up and down. I had sinus infections, I had headaches, I had asthma for the first time. I'd never had that before. I was irritable, so everybody told me. I thought I was fine and it was everybody else, but apparently it was me. I was becoming forgetful, and I relied upon caffeine to get me going and wine to de-stress and unwind at nighttime. My days were filled with trying to get everything done, and weekends were filled with catch up too. Now, let me ask you, how many of you live that kind of lifestyle? Now, maybe it wasn't to that extreme, maybe it is, but it took a personal tragedy to change my way of life. I got fired. This wonderful job that I had reporting to the president of the college, I suddenly got fired from, probably because I was burned out and not doing things very well. And I was devastated. So I did what we'd all do, blow the dust off my resume and send it out for the exact same job that I just got fired from, because that's what we do, isn't it? And I got another job at another university, and it was a really good job. It paid well. I had a team working for me, reporting to a president again. Good salary, high visibility, and a lot of people reporting to me, and a lot of stress. Now, something in me told me to just wait. And I looked around at all my colleagues and friends, and I realized that they were living the same life as I was. They too had forgotten what it was like to feel at peace, to feel calm, healthy, to feel full of vitality. So I declined that job offer. Everybody thought I was nuts. I had no safety net, I had no plan B, and I had no salary to support us. And I was carrying the major benefits. So nobody understood. So that you can imagine there were some few tense around the dinner meals. Now, it's at this time that Kripalu, which is a major yoga and Ayurveda center in Massachusetts, started advertising its Ayurveda program. And I had known Kripalu for its yoga training. I'd been up there and done some yoga with them, but I wasn't even quite sure what this Ayurveda was. I wasn't even quite sure how you pronounced it, but as I read about Ayurveda, I realized this is what I want to do. So I called them up and I said, hey, Kripalu, I'd love to come to this program. I know it's starting in a couple of months. How much is it? And they told me, and I said, whoa, I can't afford to do that. The sticker price was enormous. And I wanted to do it. And yet I was being held up by this silly thing called money that was stopping me. So I said to them, you know what, I want to come and do this. I just got fired. I have no severance package, because I got fired, not laid off. But I really want to do this. And they said, well, we have a scholarship fund. Why don't you apply for that? So I did. I got it. And off I went. And I have not looked back. And those of you who know me and have worked with me, I will say this often. You don't find Ayurveda, it finds you. And it certainly does. So off I went to study it. And that was the first step in a long line of steps many years ago. But my hope is to share some of this valuable information and knowledge with you so that you can experience the health and vitality that I have and that I promote in my clients, just as you've seen with Veronique. She's all Pitta, a lot of that Pitta drive and a lot of that Pitta vitality, which is why she focused on Pitta and the fire. And we're in Pitta season, which is summer season, and we'll get into all that. So it's quite funny. So as I started my business and I spent more and more time teaching, lecturing, traveling, it's ironic that as I promote balance and getting back into the slower rhythms of life, I seem to spend my time these days sort of zipping from place to place, even though, we're in a COVID time, from client to client, from lecture to teaching engagement, online, offline, I'm all over the place, trying to give bite-sized chunks of information because everybody wants to know how to feel healthier, but they want to do it quickly. We seem to be stuck in a world of fast forward We live in a world obsessed with speed. We do everything faster, with cramming more and more into less and less time. Every moment of the day can feel like a race against the clock. So let's talk about how we do things better. Well, we just speed them up. Do you remember those long conversations we used to have with girlfriends or over the fence with our neighbors? Now we text. I have an adult son, and we don't have conversations because he doesn't live in the same state as me. It is text. How you doing? Yep, fine. That's it. That's our communication. So we have sped up communication. We used to, well, let me ask you this. When was the last time that you laid on a couch and read a novel from cover to cover? We rarely do that. Now, that may have happened a little bit more in this COVID year, because one good thing about COVID is it has forced us to slow down a little bit, or it did. I don't know that we're necessarily staying slowed down. But even our information, bite-sized chunks of information, just headlines, news bites. We don't even really read a newspaper anymore. We don't get any of the background story. So in effect, speed reading. And remember those leisurely things, hiking, walking. You know, when was the last time you just spent the day going for a hike? Not because you needed to get some exercise or you needed to get your steps in, but just because it was fun to do. And those of us who are exercising, you know, we're doing these half-hour express classes on your Peloton, your Mirror, your Tempo, or you're back at the gym and we're doing these express classes. And even things that by their nature are slow, we just speed up. A couple of years ago, I was at a gym that was advertising speed yoga. So perfect solution for, you know, time-stressed yogis who want to find inner peace, but only take 20 minutes or so to do it. So, you know, it's funny, but, you know, there is a serious point to all this as well, that in our sprint into daily life, we lose sight of the damage that this roadrunner form of living does to us. We are so used to switching on and plugging in quickly that we fail to see the toll that it takes on every aspect of our lives, but most importantly, on our health, our diet, our work, and our relationships. And sometimes it takes a wake-up call, doesn't it? To tell us that we are rushing through our lives, that in living the fast life, we forgot about the good life. And I think for many people, that wake-up call is an illness. You know, when the body says, I can't do this anymore, and just throws in the towel. Anna's body threw in the towel. You would have loved Anna. Anna was 6 foot tall. She had a booming voice and a big heart, an infectious laugh. You just knew when she walked into any room. And I remember sitting in a room with Anna, looking at an exit sign. And I wanted to escape through the door below that exit sign, because if I could escape through that door, I wouldn't have to listen to the awful reality that Anna was being diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And as the doctor was saying, you know what, there's no hope, go ahead and put your affairs in order. There's no chemotherapy that's indicated for you. Radiation's not indicated. You're too far gone for that. Clinical trials you're out of. The disease is too progressed. I look back over Anna's life and I couldn't help thinking, but there had been signs and symptoms that things were wrong. I remember the time that Anna's legs all swelled up and they sent her to an endocrinologist. I also remember when, you know, she kept throwing up and she had all kinds of digestive problems. So they sent her to a gastroenterologist. And there was a time when her lungs and her back were really aching. So they sent her to a pulmonologist. And then for a while, she kept losing weight. She couldn't eat very well. So they sent her to a dietitian. And then lastly, when she got incredibly frustrated with it and had anxiety with this, they sent her to a psychologist who put her on medication. Now, each one of those physicians or practitioners did the best job they could with the knowledge that they had. But I couldn't help thinking, had there been somebody who could have connected all those dots, who could have seen the whole person and looked at the underlying imbalances here, these were all signs and symptoms of an imbalance. Had there been somebody like me who could have connected those dots, then maybe I would be telling you a different story about Anna, my mother, today. It is far more important to understand the imbalances in your body's basic systems and restore balance rather than name the disease and match the pill to the ill. Yeah, that's what we do. We have reached a tipping point moment in our health, and it's time to change. We have to change our thinking, to change our roadrunner lifestyles, to eat food that is individually right for us, to have a personalized health blueprint. And it's Ayurveda that can show us how. So the word Ayurveda in Sanskrit means the science of life or the knowledge of life. So it really is a blueprint for how to live the rest of your life with health and vitality, I should say. Now, Ayurveda recognizes that all life, be it human, plant, or animal, must live in harmony with nature in order to survive. And as one of my great teachers is often quoted saying, just like the owner's manual of your car speaks of maintenance schedules for the long-term health of your car, Ayurveda speaks of daily and seasonal routines that help maintain health and longevity. So let's look at what that means. Let's look at some examples here. Birds fly south in the winter, or most of them do. Their survival depends upon it. Leaves change color and they fall off the tree in fall. Most leaves do. And we know that that's a law of nature too. However, what we've done is isolate ourselves from any of the changes that take place from one season to the next, even though our survival too depends upon it. Just putting on and then taking off a sweater, or eating the same foods for 365 days in a year is not part of your original design. It causes stress in our bodies. And specifically, research now tells us that stress is processed through the gut first and foremost, causing the digestive process to break down first. There is no disease state without first having had some kind of digestive problems in the first place. And we can see this with the current gluten-free and dairy-free diets that have exploded in the last 10 years. It's not that there is a problem with gluten or dairy, unless you truly have celiacs or you're lactose intolerant. It's that our digestive systems are too weak. They're not strong enough to handle these more difficult to digest foods like dairy and gluten. So stress causes the body to break down, and depending upon your genetic predisposition, or what Ayurveda calls your dosha, your body is going to break down in its own unique way as a result of its inability to process that stress. And stress in our bodies creates inflammation. And even Western science now knows that inflammation creates disease. And it creates disease like these. And I actually want you to imagine an iceberg, and at the tip of that iceberg are things like diabetes, cancer, arthritis, heart disease, autoimmune disorders. And this is where the medical model will meet us and give us pharmaceuticals to decrease these symptoms. That is not a bad way to go. I am not anti-medication. A lot of people think I am, because uncontrolled diabetes is dangerous. Uncontrolled heart disease is dangerous. But this is where I differ. If you look below the level of the waterline, that's where the underlying root cause or imbalance is that creates that disease. And that's the arena that I work in. By correcting the underlying imbalance or root cause, then we're going to decrease your risk or get rid of all those diseases that are above that level of the waterline. And it's here where I'll meet my clients, because people don't come to me with an imbalance. They don't say, oh, I've got a hormonal, well, sometimes they may say that if it's hypothyroidism, but they won't sort of say, well, you know, I've got a mitochondrial imbalance. No, people are going to come to me with a label normally, or they'll come in and say, I just don't feel like I used to. Something's not right, even though all my blood tests are normal. So it's here when people come to see me in this state that I'll meet clients and gently guide them back to health. So let's look through the lens of doshas. And you know, I think you're going to love this because it's everybody's favorite part of Ayurveda. These are the doshas. Doshas just means type, your metabolic type. And from the 5 elements, which is space, air, water, fire, and earth, comes the 3 doshas. And the doshas are Vata. It's just a terminology. It's just a name. We could say spring. We could say we could say green peas, but green peas are something else. It's just a name, that's all. So Vata, which is the energy of movement in all of us. And then we have Pitta, which is the energy of transformation, how we change our thoughts into action, how we change our food into energy that the cells can uptake. This all comes under Pitta. And we all have Pitta in us too. And then lastly, Kapha, those are the 3 major doshas. And Kapha is the energy of lubrication and the energy of structure. It's our muscles, it's our bulk, it's all those fluids of the body come under Kapha. And we have all 3 doshas in us. Each dosha is made up of different elements. And together, those doshas form our physical bodies, our emotional bodies too. Each dosha has a specific function, a quality, and effect. So the time of day, the seasons, and our life cycles are all governed by the doshas. And doshas create balance in the body. And when out of balance, the doshas create the defect or the imbalance or the disease. So I'm going to harp upon this a lot. We have all 3 doshas in us, but we have them in unique combinations. And that unique combination is what creates you. Now, we're used to this. We have a unique genetic combination too. Ayurveda is 5,000 years old. And I think where Ayurveda has always been ahead of its time is in its ability to see then what we are now recognizing today. Ayurveda didn't have the terminology of genetics and genes, but it did know that each one of us was unique. And, you know, we also know that genetically, each one of us is unique. It's the same thing, just Ayurveda had different language for it then. And that's the reason why Ayurveda is highly individualized. So yeah, the doshas are the crowd pleaser part of Ayurveda, where everybody sort of wants to say, yay, who am I? So we're going to meet the doshas one by one. There will be 1 or 2 doshas that best describe you, probably quickly followed by a little sparkle in your soul that sort of says, hey, that's me. You might also recognize your family members and friends. So doshas are definitely the most fun to learn, but it's not the whole part of Ayurveda, but it is sort of the sexy part of Ayurveda that everybody wants to know. So let's look at Vata, and I'm hoping all of you took the dosha quiz before you got here. I sent it out to you so that you have an idea of who you are. If not, just go back to that at your time, at your leisure, and just take it to get an idea of who you are. Quizzes are a lot of fun, and they certainly give us some valuable information. And the valuable information they give us is who we are at the time we take the quiz, because that's all any quiz can do. So do bear that in mind. But let's look at how to spot a Vata, or what a Vata is. So Vata dosha is made of the elements space and air. And Vata in all of us, and remember we all have Vata, is the energy of movement. So we can see that energy much like the wind, you know, it's subtle, it's fast, it's cold, and it moves quickly. And that's what Vatas are like. Vatas like to walk fast. They like to talk fast. They create fast. They worry fast. Vata people tend to be on the thinner side with a smaller frame. They often don't have much fat on them, so they lack that insulation, which means they often feel cold. So they have that more slender physique. They often have more of an oval shaped face. Their hair is often thin, dry, a little frizzy, and they're delicate in physical build, and they're also delicate emotionally as well. So their moods and their minds can change really, really easily. So Vatas are a bit bird-like, flitting from one thing to the next, sometimes out of pure spontaneity, which they love. Other times, they soar with intention and grace. They're just off doing their own thing. Now, since Vata predominant people are made of air and space, they don't have a lot holding them together. They don't, what that really means is they'll quickly go out of balance, but they can just as quickly go back into balance too. So let's look at a Vata personality. Balanced Vatas are extremely creative. They tend to take a spiritual path. They're eager, they're quick thinkers, quick adapters. They're exuberant, contagiously energetic, delightfully invigorating. These are the people that you would say just light up a room. And Vatas are indeed happiest when they're warm. They get cold very easily. When they have a calm, peaceful mind, that then is going to allow their creativity to soar. Vatas do really well with projects encompassing many different facets, so they can stay sort of creative in each part. They love expansive space to breathe, to move, to just wriggle. They're always moving. Their hands are moving, they're blinking, their legs are moving. This is just Vata. It's that energy of movement. This is the type that says, Shavasana is hard for me to do. I can't keep still. This is the type that says, I just can't sit and meditate. So with Vatas, we have to make sure that they move. So a moving meditation would be better for you. So if a Vata person is in an environment that's dark, that's stagnant, and really, really cluttered, they're going to get depressed really quickly. They don't tolerate criticism very well because they have very delicate feelings. They're often called empathic, and their feelings get hurt easily. They're just delicate. They're deeply affected by what happens around them, by what people say, by the news. This is the type that has to be careful with what they watch on TV, what they allow to come in, because it's going to stay with them for a while. They have to be careful what they read on Facebook, on social media too. So this is the type that does really well with taking a break from social media every now and then. But they are dramatic beings, swinging like a pendulum. When they're on, they're really on, but when they're off, they're really off too. The good news is, though, Vatas quickly forget what they were off about, and they can quickly resume singing and being as happy as a bird. How many of you sort of relate a little bit to being a Vata? Great. So how to spot one: small frame, slender bones. They normally have very sort of prominent joints, oval face, small eyes and lashes, often have a long nose, very long tapering fingers. The skin is very dry. This is the type that ages pretty quickly. Their skin is often cool. They often have brittle nails, but they can have sort of olive, light brown skin. They tend to tan easily. They tend to have drier hair that tends to be more curly or on the frizzier side. And, they talk a lot. They use their hands a lot. They're chronic multitaskers. They never do one thing at a time. And as we said, they talk fast, walk fast, think fast, easily fatigued. They worry fast too. They're chronically late for things. They don't mean to be. They just get caught up with other things. But they are awfully spontaneous. They're incredibly eager. These are the type that says, I go with my feelings, I trust my gut. So they're very intuitive. And we often see Vatas as artists, designers, teachers, actors, dancers. Often yoga teachers are in fact Vatas. They love that movement through air and space. So, just sort of, it's almost like holding up a mirror to yourself. How do you see yourself reflected in these? Now, let's look at some of Vata imbalances. So Vatas are prone to imbalances like anxiety, worry, panic attacks, even mood swings, chronic fatigue. Vatas often come and see me in later life, absolutely exhausted. They often have memory loss, short-term memory loss. constipation, digestive problems, dry skin, pain that comes and goes, spasms that come and go. They can get depressed, and they're prone to osteoarthritis. And because they are the energy of movement, their minds and bodies are constantly going. They're constantly fidgeting or wiggling their legs when they sit. And this constant motion is a result of a Vata increase. If you find yourself doing it, just know why. And when Vatas get cold, not a good idea for Vatas. Their concentration just flies out the window. They become moody, confused, forgetful, inattentive, which really then makes them highly inefficient. So overall, when there's too much motion, too much traveling, too much multitasking, too much stress, it's going to turn a Vata into a mess of confusion. They're going to have a lot of self-doubt, and they're just going to feel like they've lost control. They're going to feel overwhelmed. And Vatas will often say, I just can't cope with it all. It's too much. I just feel overwhelmed. Vatas are the people who will say, I just need my space. So their minds tend to race to the future, and they create all sorts of imaginary outcomes here. So the Vata mind, and sometimes this will work, there we go, lives in the future. They love to what if scenarios. They have stories of 1,000 possible scenarios. And Vatas need to remember to stay present, because most of what they put in their energies and worries hasn't even happened yet. So if a Vata doesn't stick to a reliable schedule and eat grounding foods that's right for them, they can just fly away like a leaf floating in the wind, wherever it just takes them. And sometimes what I have to do with a Vata that's incredibly out of balance is just grab them and ground them, tether them again. Otherwise, they will go all over the place. How many of you feel now that you identify more with Vata based upon some of the imbalances? Sure. And we live in a Vata increasing world. I mean, we're bombarded with stuff, with technology, with being on this fast pace. This is very Vata aggravating. So let's move on to Pitta. And Pitta is the energy of transformation, just as I said, and it's made of the elements fire and water. And in nature, Pitta energy is the sun. It's fiery, it's hot, it transforms everything in its path. And Pitta dosha is responsible most for digestion and transformation, including how we transform our food, how we transform our thoughts, our emotions, and our intelligence. So Pitta governs our eyes. If you have any kinds of eye problems, that's Pitta. Our skin, any kind of skin problems, that's high Pitta. Liver, if you have liver problems. Blood, and often skin problems, are directly correlated with not detoxifying blood properly. Small intestines and that digestive fire, or your metabolism. So Pitta people tend to have a medium and muscular build. They're more muscular than our Vata friends. They tend to have pretty sensitive skin, and they usually run hot, whereas Vatas run cold. Pittas are going to run hot. They have sharp facial features. They normally have pretty penetrating blue or green eyes. They often have receding hairline or early graying. And Pittas are really well organized. They move with intent. They pre-plan everything. They have an analytical nature that will, that will just have them ask a cajillion questions before making a sound decision. They're very deeply concerned with time. This is the type that if they had an interview the next day, they would go the day before just to make sure they knew how to get there, how long it would take, they knew where to park, pre-plan everything. What else about Pittas? Pittas are sharp in the mind. They can also be pretty sharp-tongued too. So, Pittas just say it as they mean it, and they don't realize that their words can be jarring at times. Now, Pittas are really high performers, and they often overload themselves because nobody can do it as well as they can. They don't beat around the bush. They often try and find the quickest and most efficient ways of getting something done. So they're fantastic improvisers. They're great negotiators. They're wonderful problem solvers. They tend to live very much in the present. And you would not go to a Pitta for a hug. You would go to a Pitta to solve your problems. Now, balanced Pittas are joyful. They're incredibly persuasive. They have a quick-witted sense of humor. They easily attract others to follow them. And they have really fiery personalities. And Pittas are happiest when things just go their own way, because it often is the right way. So why is everybody just arguing about it? Might as well just do it in the right way in the first place. And they just may debate and argue with you until you finally agree with their point of view. So they thrive on competition, have a natural ability to lead. They make great politicians, lawyers, athletes, business owners. They're mega organized. They'll get irritated if things get messy. If anything in line of sight is out of order, they don't like it. A messy kitchen, a messy desk, a messy wardrobe. And because Pitta governs the eyes, Pittas can see everything down to the tiniest detail. So if there was a spelling error in a piece of writing, they would see that straight away, where somebody else may not even see it. They'll see splotches in the kitchen sink and we'll have to clean it up. It just can't be left. So if there's a mess or disarray in their line of sight, their mind's just not going to be able to focus. And when Pittas are out of focus, they get irritable. So this is that type that can just get angry. So how do we spot a Pitta? A Pitta tends to be more athletic, muscular, or medium build. They often have those sharp facial features. Their skin is often sort of a ruddy complexion, slightly pink, slightly red. They have a lot of moles and freckles, often blue-green or very sort of sharp, intense eyes. They have that gaze that just like he does, that draws you in. And they often have early graying or balding or receding hairlines. They tend to have smooth, silky, and pretty straight hair. Their words can sound and feel pretty sharp, but they are chronically witty. They have a great sense of humor. They often need glasses. These are extremely punctual people, and they are going to ask lots and lots and lots of questions. So Pittas out of balance are prone to heated imbalances, things like sunburn, heartburn, hypertension, tension headaches, increased stress, irritability. Anger can even manifest. They can have flashes of anger. They're quick to flare. They have a pretty high threshold as far as anger is concerned, but eventually their stress levels will cause burnout. And Pittas will literally burn out. They tend to take on so much that in the end, they come and see somebody like me and say, I'm not as sharp as I used to be. I'm not focused. There's no joy in my life anymore. And fix it, Kerry, because they want results straight away. Pittas do get angry, but they tend more towards frustration and irritability as their go-to negative emotions. Mostly if they feel that others are not doing their part or not following the rules. And because Pitta is related to our digestive fire or our metabolism, Pitta digestion can often run hot or sharp. So that results in acidic stomach, heartburn, loose stools, or even diarrhea as well. And Pittas are perfectionists. So getting bogged down in the details is often what causes them to be workaholics. Pittas hold in stress and they'll take projects on themselves instead of delegating. That, it's that control thing again. So for those of you who this resonates with, remember other people have good ideas too, and they are also capable of doing a good job. It may not be the same way that you do it, but it doesn't mean it's not going to be a good job. So teach others how to fish so that you can keep doing what you do best, which is strategizing and planning without overtaxing yourself. And I think this is a great sort of image of what a Pitta would be like, even on a desert island, everything neatly decided and a little sort of check to-do list. These are the type of people who will come to me and they've got their symptoms on a spreadsheet that they give to me. So highly organized. So how many of you tend to relate to that? Or live with somebody like this? Just put in the chat. Yep, I know this person. Yeah. Yep, I'm seeing it. We all know people like this. I can be a lot like this too. And then our last dosha that we're going to sort of go through, and that's Kapha. And remember, these are just names. It could be any name. But Kapha creates all our physical building blocks and is responsible for keeping our tissues strong and our tissues supple as well. So Kapha in all of us is our lubrication, it's our mucus, it's all those reproductive fluids, and it's responsible for building our tissues, which means Kaphas are going to show up with a more of a solid or voluptuous build. They have a strong presence. They are often pretty soft-spoken, pretty shy actually. Yeah, our Kapha types are some of the strongest, jolliest, sweetest natured, and they're also highly structured in their bodies. They have often beautiful porcelain type skin. They don't wrinkle easily because, you know, if you think about the elements, it's earth and water. So all that water element means that they don't tend to dry out, whereas Vatas have no water element, they're the air element, so they tend to dry out quickly. So they often have really, really nice skin, and Kaphas are the sturdiest of all three doshas. They're capable of handling a lot of work with endless patience. And since Kaphas are made of water and earth, they're a little bit more heavy and a little bit more slow in nature. That doesn't make them slow thinking. It just means they're slower in movement, slower to do things. But everybody loves a Kapha. This is your best friend. You know, balanced Kaphas are peacemakers. They're empathic caretakers. They're joyous hosts. They love nothing more than to be surrounded by friends and family, good food, good drinks, and just enjoying the social aspect. They love their homes. They give the best hugs. You go to a Kapha for a hug. You really do. They're happy. They're very, very patient. And they are the first ones to offer a helping hand. Kaphas love to cheerlead others and be a support, and their faces and their hearts will just light up when others succeed. So they really are your go-to cheering squad. They often have a very steady mind. Their attitude is most often positive, and their body is strong. So their presence allows others to rest easy because Kaphas don't judge. They have this wonderful ability of just being non-judgmental. They always listen. They rarely get angry. And Kaphas are happiest when they're in a warm but dry climate. They do not do humidity well. And when also they can do the light activities. They love things like gardening, cooking, or knitting. They're often beautiful singers, powerful singers. It's all that healthy lubrication around the vocal cords that make them a natural singer. So as you're reading this, or as I'm telling you this rather, how does that feel for you? Does this tend to sort of ring true for you? Now, Kaphas don't like change, and they feel most comfortable in their routines. They'll go to the same restaurants, they'll order the same entrees over and over again. They may not move very far from their hometown, and Kaphas know what they like, so why change it? They can take a long time to make a decision, often weighing it up. They're a little on the lazy side. They would rather somebody else make the decision. And it's not that they can't, it's just they're happy-go-lucky. And, you know, if that's something you want to do, they're happy to do it with you. It doesn't matter that much. But give Kapha a list of projects to do and consider it done. They are methodical, they are steady, they will systematically get things done. Now, Kaphas do have strong endurance, but what happens here is they can overextend themselves, and then nothing is left for themselves. So because they are the ultimate people pleasers, they have a hard time saying no. They don't like to upset others. They don't like to create conflict. This is just the kind that will walk away. So they'll often end up taking on way too much just to keep the peace. And if Kaphas don't ask for that reprieve, then they often take on more of that victim role where they'll say, oh, poor old me. And that negative weight gets felt by everybody and is a big downer. Now, it's not easy to exhaust or upset a kapha, but once you have upset them, they can get a little mean. They can hold a grudge for years even. And the best thing kaphas can do is just ask for what you need, just ask for what you want. Others will assume you're okay because, you know, you've got a happy-go-lucky nature, you've got a big smile on your face, so you have to ask for that rest. So how do we spot a kapha? They tend to have a larger frame, bigger bones, stronger joints, more of that sort of roundish face. They normally have big, beautiful eyes with beautiful whites of the eyes, a smaller nose. We often find kaphas very attractive just because, well, they often have a great big smile on their faces, which we always find attractive. They'll have strong nails, big knuckles. Their skin is cool, often moist and thick. And their skin color is very even. They have a wonderful clear complexion. Their hair tends to be more on the oily side. It's often thick, sort of thick, luxurious hair, often quite wavy. But these people are often shy, they're quiet, they listen more than they talk. They have a lot of endurance, they have a lot of stamina. They're very patient, they're much more slow moving, but they can be a bit lazy, they can be couch potatoes, and they would rather follow than lead. They tend to put everybody else first. And we often find kaphas in the nurturing profession, so massage therapy, psychologists, nurses, looking after our elderly. They just love to take, they're our natural caretakers, they really are. So if we look at kapha imbalances, they're prone to imbalances, first off, like weight gain. You know, as soon as the kapha goes out of balance, they're going to put on weight. Lethargy, lack of motivation, foggy thinking, they just get unclear. Cystic acne is a big one with kaphas. Allergies, if you have seasonal allergies, that's a kapha disorder. Increased congestion, so congestion in the sinuses, congestion in the lungs. If you're a person that when you get a cold, it turns into bronchitis or pneumonia, this is that kapha playing out. Water retention is a big one for kaphas as well. And kaphas can get lonely if they don't have enough people time, so they can get depressed as well. Because being with others is what invigorates kaphas. They feel lighter, they feel more inspired when in the company of vivacious vatas or those strategic thinking pittas. They actually really appreciate that. But because of their heavy static nature, it's really easy for kaphas to get stuck in their thinking, get stuck in a rut, get stuck with things around them. They tend to collect things, even to the point of hoarding at times. So they're our quintessential pack rat. And a good example of a kapha is, you know, here we go, Eeyore, that sort of, oh, okay. And I'm not going to play this because it goes on for too long. But kaphas do have a tendency towards depression and lack of motivation when they get imbalanced. So Eeyore is an example of a kapha out of balance. How many of you sort of feel that that may be you as well? I'm just looking at the chat here to see what everybody's saying. Yes, definitely. Yes, yes. Pitta, pitta, pitta. Great. So let's play a game, and we're going to play a game called Name That Dosha, darling. All right. Let me, oh, it's going to play anyway. Let me see if I can get out of this. Okay, let's go back one. So let's go on a journey together. So everybody is, let me just, sorry about that. Everybody's in Shavasana. Now, we haven't done Shavasana today, and most of you know what that is. So it's the end of a great yoga class with Veronique. And we noticed that two tiny frame girls are laying side by side. They're jibber-jabbering and whispering about how they're so tired, how they need coffee, how they didn't sleep well last night. They just seem to be complaining, well, just about everything. They fight and they sigh, and you just know that they're not relaxed. Finally, Shavasana ends. They jump up, roll up their mats, and they're out the door before you can even say namaste. So who's that dosha? Anybody else? Who's that dosha? Yeah, we're getting it. Yes, this is that very Vata dosha that can't keep still. Absolutely. And then our next scenario is we start our class and are just settling into sort of Ujjayi breathing, that 3-part breath. When woman comes barging in late, she unrolls her mat and with a huge sigh, she says in a very grouchy tone, "There's no room in the parking lot and you need a better system for this." For all of those who said that you were this type, who is this? Yeah. Strategic thinking pittas that get very uptight when things don't go their own way. Yeah. And lastly, we notice that Tom is in class again. He's fun. He's always laughing and joking and generally playing the fool. And sometimes you wonder why he comes, because he doesn't really seem to like the physical aspects of yoga very much, but he does seem to really enjoy the socialization before and after class. And this time you notice that he seems to have coffee stains all over his shirt. He notices you looking at his shirt. "Oh, it's okay," he says. "I tripped on the stairs with my coffee as I was sneezing. Clumsy as usual." So who is that? Let me bring up chat again. Yeah. And it's a kind of giveaway because there's only one dosha left. So I kind of gave that away to you, but yes, you got it. So once you know your body type, it's like having a roadmap that points you in the right direction of becoming your best self so that you can fulfill your potential, or what we call your dharma, and truly experience that vitality, which is health. Now, everybody is a combination of all 3 doshas, but we do tend to have 1 or 2 that are more predominant. The key in Ayurveda is finding your balance. So how do you know your dosha? And there are many dosha questionnaires out there. And indeed, I have one too that you probably took called the Modern Dosha Quiz. But just a word of warning, when we fill in a quiz or a questionnaire, no matter how fun it is flawed in 2 ways. First off, it's a quick snapshot. It's a single moment in history. That quiz can only spit back the information that you've put in. You change the information tomorrow, it's going to spit out something different. The other limitation to any quiz is it is self-reporting. So you're putting down who you think you are. That is not necessarily who you are. So to really know what your metabolic constitution is, or your dosha, you know, there's no substitution for a consultation. And that's why I offer a complimentary consultation to you, because I don't want you get caught up into thinking, well, it's Ayurveda by numbers. Once I know my dosha type, all I have to do is find the right foods. I wish it was as simple as that. It's actually a little bit more nuanced than that. You know, an Ayurveda practitioner is trained to determine your constitution at birth and what it is now, and the degree that you are out of balance, if at all. Now, Ayurveda emphasizes the principle of opposites. So whatever your dominant dosha, its foods, climates, and activities of the opposite nature is going to help balance you out. For example, if you're a Vata and experiencing dryness, constipation, dry hair, dry skin, maybe some anxiety, you're going to look for activities and foods that have the opposite quality. So find a regular routine, get lots of rest, eat warmer, more oily foods. And then the kapha tendencies of overeating and that stagnant energy may result in head colds, depression, and weight gain to the point of obesity. And I always recommend a lot of stimulation for these types, new challenges, vigorous exercise, as well as light and dry foods. That's going to counterbalance those moist and heavy physical characteristics of Kapha. So once you know your body type, it's like having a roadmap that points you in the right direction of becoming the best version of you. So let's look here at irritable Irene. Sometimes I call it irritable Irene, sometimes I call it angry Angela. So let's look. She has heartburn, she has acne, and these symptoms are both Pitta in nature. She's hot, inflamed, oily, sharp, and intense. And for angry Angela to soothe her heartburn and acne, she's going to need to incorporate cooling foods such as cilantro. Basmati rice is cooling, mint, bitter leafy greens, and cucumbers. She could also increase her participation in cooling, not competitive activities like swimming, because swimming being water is going to cool her down. Walks in the moonlight. The light from the moon is a silver light, it's a cooling light, as opposed from the light of the day is a heating light. You know, laughing with friends, some Pitta pacifying yoga. But if angry Angela tells you she's doing hot yoga in the midday sun every day, and then she goes and eats a Mexican meal with a glass of red wine, you can see how that's going to aggravate somebody who's a Pitta. Most importantly, we also need to look at the mental and emotional aspects of this underlying Pitta emotion that she's got, such as anger, judgment, and perfectionism. So we would work with all that. And this is where I often start with clients. They'll come and see me because of symptoms, these particular symptoms. And it's often here that I'll team up with them and guide them back into getting their bodies and their minds back on track. So, how do we do that? How do we get back on track? Well, Ayurveda starts with digestion, as it attributes 80% of all disease to imbalances of the digestive system. So there is a lot of attention on digestion. Now, we have made eating complicated, haven't we? My gosh, there are more diets and theories than there are days in a month. And isn't it funny how animals seem to balance their nutritional needs quite well, thank you, without this extensive knowledge of proteins, fats, and carbohydrates? We incessantly count calories, we measure grams of fat, only to find out that the latest study, which tells us that the rules of eating have changed yet again. I remember in my day, we ate margarine, but you couldn't eat eggs. Now we eat eggs and not margarine, we eat butter. So, I mean, it consistently changes. But in Ayurveda, the rules remain constant. As the seasons change and different foods are harvested, we change the foods we eat. So in winter, for example, squirrels eat nuts. This is a good source of protein and fat, and this is the perfect food to help combat the cold, dry weather in the winter months, if you live somewhere like that. That's Vata season. So cooked grains, which are harvested in the fall and cooked during the winter, are going to provide a warm, heavy, nutritional base that helps us adapt to the cold of winter. But in spring, after eating all those heavy nuts and grains during the long sedentary winter, nature again provides the perfect food. We see in spring light leafy green vegetables and all those berries. And these are the first foods harvested in the spring, which is Kapha season. And this is the natural antidote for allergy season. And then as the days get warmer in July and August, nature provides cooling fruits and vegetables to balance the heat of summer, which is Pitta season, which is why Veronique did a cooling sequence today. So it's perfect, isn't it? Ayurveda understands these cycles of nature. Unfortunately, we forgot. Our culture demands that we rush, push, shove our way through life in order to get ahead, We frequently race through our meals, even skip meals, because we're busy. We buy the same foods 365 days in a year because you can in the grocery store. And we race through the days, the months, the seasons, and ultimately the years. Here's what a lot of my clients will do. Maybe a shake for breakfast, because shakes are supposed to be healthy, aren't they? Or we grab a bagel on the run with a cup of coffee to go. We jump in the car if we're indeed in the car, or we stagger down to our home office and eat at our desk if we eat at all, and we start work. Mid-morning, we crash because we haven't eaten a nutritious enough breakfast. We need something to keep us going, so we grab either another cup of coffee or something sweet to keep us going. Then we get to lunchtime, and we often eat lunch at our desks. Maybe we'll zap something in the microwave, grab something quick, you know, maybe it's a slice of pizza, maybe it's some leftovers from last night because it's easy and we don't have much time because, you know, we want to get that next email out. And maybe we have a project to finish. So we work through lunch. Come mid-afternoon, we suddenly crash again. And we think, oh my God, I have to have something to keep me going. I still have work to do. It's not time to crash. I know, let's have another cup of coffee or perhaps some cookies. Or I tell you what, candy's looking pretty good round about now. So are pretzels, so is bread, and so is a nap. Your body did not have enough nutrition at lunch to get you through till dinner, so you need something to pick you up. Then we go home. If you're driving home, you're exhausted by the time you get home, or you stagger from your home office into the kitchen and you have to cook a meal for the kids or for anybody who lives you. We know we should exercise, but you know, we're kind of busy today. Maybe tomorrow we'll start. Maybe tomorrow we'll feel more like it. Right now we have to cook a meal for people who live with us. And by the time we sit down to eat, it's 7 o'clock at night and we're exhausted. We have our biggest meal of the day at about 7 o'clock when digestion is actually at its weakest. And this could not be more against the natural cycles of the day. And how many of us do this? Day in, day out, year in, year out. It takes its toll. This is what I see in my practice. People come to me because of these symptoms: fatigue, constipation, diarrhea, insomnia, heartburn, hot flashes, rashes, headaches, joint aches. It goes on and on and on. And these are everyday symptoms before we've even got to you've been diagnosed with a disease. 80% of Americans have some kind of digestive problem. That means you either have gas and bloating, constipation, loose stools or diarrhea, or burping or heartburn. 80% of this nation has gone and got medication, or even if it's over-the-counter medication or herbal supplements to combat just digestion. So we have to look at what's going on. That 80% of our nation has digestive problems. So let's look at what we can do about it. And these are just a few things that you can do. This is not everything by any means. Wake up before sunrise. And if you're like, oh, well, the kaphas are going, oh my God, I can't do that. The Vatas are like, hey, I'm already up. So that's going to put you in Vata time of day, which means you're going to have energy. So you kaphas that like to sleep in, wake up before sunrise. Have a nutritious breakfast according to your type. Don't skip breakfast, even if it's just something light. You kaphas that tend to not feel hungry in the morning, have some fruit. Just have a piece of fruit. That's all you need to do. Have your biggest meal of the day at lunch. That is so against our culture, isn't it? As I said, we have our biggest meal of the day in the evening and wonder why we have digestive problems. Our digestive fire is at its strongest at lunchtime. Never eat and run. Our whole culture is based on eating and running. Sit and eat. Don't eat and watch television. Don't eat and check email. Don't eat and read a book or look at your iPhone. Just enjoy the food. Eat freshly cooked or prepared meals as much as possible. And then take at least 20 minutes a day just for you. when I first had a teacher who told me this, and I was incredibly busy at the time, and I think it was a yoga teacher who said this, and I scoffed. I said, I don't have 20 minutes a day for me. So he said, in which case you need to take an hour. I said, what do you mean an hour? I just told you I haven't got time for 20 minutes. But what he was really saying is, if you don't have time for 20 minutes, you probably need an hour. Electronics off at least an hour before bed. Insomnia, 48% of Americans don't sleep well either. They either can't get to sleep or they can't stay asleep. That's half our population. So a lot of blue light from electronic devices. It does disturb circadian rhythms. The science is there. So electronics off at least an hour before bed, and bed between 10 and 11. You Pittas who tell me, but I get my second wind at that time of night. That's when I'm my most productive. This is when I get all my projects done. This is the time between 10 and 2 at nighttime that the body restores and rejuvenates. If you're finishing projects, doing homework, packing the school lunches, you are not putting that time into where it needs to go, which is rejuvenation. And remember, Pitta's burnout. And then seasonal cleanse. We're not going to talk so much about a seasonal cleanse, but it is one of those routines that we do in the, especially coming into fall, to get rid of the heat of the summer and build our immunity for the upcoming fall. So clearly, I mean, there's a lot more to Ayurveda health than just these guidelines. This is just a very small overview. But I do see in medicine today that there is now more of an emphasis on healthy lifestyle and prevention. And this is where Ayurveda is a complement to Western medicine. And indeed, lots of people around the world are turning to complementary forms of medicine, which do tend to tap into a slower and gentler, more holistic form of healing. And I think it's clearly unique in this day and age to find a system of medicine that is over 5,000 years old and still today one of the largest on the planet. Ayurveda, although in its infancy here in the US, has over 300,000 physicians, making it one of the largest medical organizations in the world. And I think some of its success depends upon its very definition of health. And the definition of health by the World Health Organization for Ayurveda says, to be healthy, you have to have a well-balanced mind, a well-formed body too, so you don't get out of exercising. Good elimination, here's that digestion, very important. When the doshas or metabolic constitutions are in balance, when the mind and body are in harmony, and only then is optimal health achieved. And one of the ways that we harmonize the mind and body is through our yoga practice too. And that's why Ayurveda and yoga are sister sciences. So I did promise you a skincare facial serum that's right for your dosha and the season. So I will sort of email you and give you that information. But what I really want to talk about is the reason that the Holistic Highway has been so successful and helped literally thousands of clients at this point, where you are right now to reach health goals of feeling so much better, is because of our ethos, which is that there is no one size fits all. And we kind of know that. We know there's not one size fits all. There's no one drug that suits all people. There's no one nutritional program. Why is it that your friend can eat, donuts and not put on weight, but you only have to look at a donut and put on 5 pounds? Some of you are more sensitive to skincare products than others. You don't have the same eyes, nose, skin as somebody else. So why would we assume that health should be one size fits all? So that's why we developed our personalized programs, because when we get to work with you one-on-one, we can personalize and get to know you and your particular health challenges. I can't do that on a webinar, but I can tell you about how our programs work on a personal level. We work one-on-one with people, and we do it in a very personalized way by creating customized wellness plans that meet your specific health needs. And that's based upon really understanding who you are. So we go very deep into who you are, your bio-individuality, if you like, And we do this by exploring all aspects of what makes you, you. Now, in our programs, we do include genetic testing as well. That way, we can get to know you right down to that molecular level. And then this knowledge is then combined with the information from an Ayurveda consultation. That way, we can create a really comprehensive wellness plan that just meets your specific health needs. For example, are you eating the right foods in the right seasons? Are you getting up at the right time and going to bed at the right time for you? You know, and if you're out there exercising, then let's make sure that you are doing the right exercises to get the best results for your particular type. Also, just as important, does the genetic test tell us that some foods that otherwise should be fine may actually be the cause of things like weight gain or low energy or stress on the body? So it's really important to find the answers to those questions too, because remember, how your body breaks down according to stress is going to be unique. So once we've determined all that, that results in a customized wellness plan that is based upon all your symptoms and imbalances combined with the knowledge from your genetic makeup. We're going to end up with this really multifaceted plan that's going to be broken down into exercise support, lifestyle support, herbal support if you need it, so mental health support. I will tell you what to eat for your body type and goals, when to sleep, how to exercise. So everything is tailored to you personally. As I said, Ayurveda in Sanskrit means the science of life or the science of longevity. So it really is that blueprint for how to live the rest of your life with health and vitality. And that's what we want for you. So here's what I'd like to do. We're going to schedule a time to chat. I'm going to send you out a link to my online calendar, perhaps in a day or two, and go much deeper into who you are and see what health challenges that you may be struggling with and see if I can give you any help. I can't always help everybody. I wish I could, but if for any reason I can't, I do have a lot of resources around the country, and I'll do my best to at least connect you with some resources that can help you. So keep an eye on your email for all the details you need to schedule a complimentary consult. And you, just by being here, you're going to automatically be entered the drawing to win a complimentary facial serum, unless you really don't want it, in which case email me and let me know. And I would normally finish off with questions here, and we will get to questions, but I want to hand it back to Veronique at this point. And then we'll do questions when she's finished as well. And I'll stay here and answer any questions that you might have. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and back to Veronique.
That is so excellent, Kerry. Thank you for such a beautiful presentation. I always continue to learn so much from you. Thank you so much for giving that overview and also connecting the yoga with the Ayurveda in there as well. I know that we're close to time, so I want to be respectful of everyone's commitment and of your energy. I think because we've been sitting, I thought it would be really nice to give some nice stretch into the neck, the shoulders, and the front hip flexors into the psoas. So I invite you to come into a Sphynx Pose. If you do have a pillow or a bolster, I invite you to have that underneath your front hip flexors. And then I'll just turn profile so you can better see the alignment of it. It'll come underneath your rib cage. And then you'll kind of wriggle into your bolster like so that it's right underneath the rib cage. And it's a really nice way to support. And it helps tie into that connection to our solar plexus chakra. So once again, bringing it all full circle. You can lift one leg, extend it to one corner of the mat, extending the other leg and extending it to the other corner of the mat, and just kind of wriggle your hips out, wriggle your shoulders out, let that go. And then on an inhale, open up through the heart, guide your heart through the forearms. And then as you exhale, drip your chin towards your chest. Keep that upliftedness into the heart. And then just start to toggle your left ear towards your left shoulder. You can separate into the jaw. This is probably my most favorite thing to do after sitting at the computer, just to release into that space. You can press down more firmly into your right forearm to amplify that stretch. Feel free to make noise. You're muted. Draw your chin back through center, and then guiding your right ear towards the right shoulder, and then pressing down perhaps a little bit more firmly into your left forearm. Sometimes I like to exaggerate separating the mouth, or separating the jaw rather, so that the space between the molars can have some room. Sometimes you do a lot of subconscious holding in the jaw, and it's just a nice way to alleviate that holding. And then coming back to center, you can toggle side to side, just inviting a little bit of movement here. And just coming back to that peaceful place. You can come back to center, allow your head to drip towards the ground. Close the eyes and come back to the waterfall image. You can start to feel perhaps a light drizzle on your back, on the back of your head. Maybe you feel the water spilling down your face. And just coming back to that cooling energy. Let go of the holding. Breathe here, just 3 more breaths. So I'll give a couple options for Shavasana. So if you are quite happy in this Sphynx pose, maybe you take a belly down Shavasana today. Option to keep your bolster where it is, and you can make a little hand pillow for yourself, resting your forehead. Or certainly if you have a block or a pillow to put under the forehead, it might be nice to rest your head on something. And this can help stimulate digestion as well. So it's a really nice place to linger. If you're more comfortable coming onto your back body, I recommend either laying down next to your couch, your bed, to a wall, so you can bring your legs up higher. If you don't have that available, you can create your own wall with 2 blocks and a bolster. I like to call this little Stonehenge, building our little tower. And then you'll situate your hips close to your setup. And just be mindful, particularly if you have foam blocks and your setup is a little tippy, make sure your calves are on your support comfortably. If you know that your chin tilts up a lot when you're laying flat on your back, you can always have a pillow or a block underneath your head as well. Try to scoot your hips close to your setup. If you have a ponytail, move it out of the way. You might even lift your head up and lengthen through the back of the neck. Scoop the shoulder blades underneath you, extend your tailbone towards your heels. So you're really allowing the lower back to surrender. And then just allow for a softening into this shape. And so here, embracing true yin energy. So this quality of surrender, this moon energy, it's cooling, it's nurturing, it's mothering. It's a really nice, peaceful way to come into. Coming back to our mantra of peace begins with me. Knowing that all of the beautiful rituals that we impart with our yoga and our Ayurveda practice, they go hand in hand here. And then here in Shavasana, releasing all the efforting and just trusting that all of that will integrate as it does. And just letting go of any control of the breath. Just allowing yourself to simply be. If you've arrived in a shape that feels quite lovely, you are so welcome to linger there for as long as you'd like. If you'd like to be guided out, I invite you to slowly start to deepen your breath, or even just draw your awareness to your breath. And then allow that awareness of the breath to translate to any intuitive movements that feel like they're calling you. Just allow for the eyes to remain closed if you can, and just feel for any little movements, maybe the habitual ones, or maybe something new. As always, you're welcome to linger, either if you're on your belly or on your back, or if you chose to close in a seated meditation, or if you'd like, perhaps if you are on your belly, rolling over onto one side. And then if you're on your back, maybe drawing your knees into your chest. If it feels good, you can gently rock from side to side, nice sacral massage. Maybe making circles into the ankles. Lingering to this feeling, you can either roll to one side if you aren't already, or maybe gently rock directly straight up, just journeying to a seat in any way that feels organic and natural to you. Sometimes it's nice to take a little twist from side to side as you go, so that you can just feel the spine recalibrate for yourself. And sitting up nice and tall once you get there, taking a moment to observe, noting that it doesn't take huge dramatic shifts to make a really large impact, right? It's these small moments, these moments of connection with mind, body, and soul, knowing that you have the power to make a shift every moment. If you'd like, joining palms together to touch at heart space, honoring your efforts, honoring your attention, your commitment to showing up with vibrancy, with vitality, and just allowing that to be an extension of the way that you show up for others. We'll take a collective breath in through the nose and let it go out the mouth. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your practice, for sharing space, sending so much love and light to each of you. Thank you, thank you. If you're still lingering in your Shavasana, please feel free to stay. And then if you are wanting to stay for the Q&A, we will open it up, and I welcome you to place your questions in the chat, and either myself or Kerry will answer as apropos. So Kerry, we do have a question that came in at the end of your Ayurveda talk that I'll share with you. So the question is, I am a nurse and work night shift. Do you have any suggestions to regulate circadian rhythms?
Gosh, that is a tough one. So shift work by its very nature, and I have physicians and nurses that work with me. Airline pilots too have the same problem. So it's a challenge. So what we have to do is we have to regulate as much as we can other areas of your life, taking into account that you know, your biorhythms are off, your circadian rhythms are off. What I would encourage you to do is not sort of take artificial things like any of the medications are out there to help you sleep better. But yeah, that's a tough one. It's not impossible. We've regulated many people who do work shifts. Are you working just night shifts, or are you on sort of rotating shifts?
I work night shift only.
Okay, so Kimberly, yeah, thank you. It's going to be a hard road for you. Yes, it's a challenge. There's no getting around that. But what we can do is we can make sure that in all other areas of your life, your exercise, your food, you're doing all the seasonal things, and that you're not experiencing any symptoms which are signs of imbalance. And I'm not going to put you on the spot here, Kimberly. I hope that we can chat later.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I don't want to put you on the spot, but then we can talk about ways that we can balance you out a little bit more. Okay. Great. Good question. Any other questions? Was that the only question? Looks like it was, Veronique. It was a good question.
Yes, it was. You covered a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm assuming, that nobody has any questions because I've explained everything so well.
Yes. You can also feel free to unmute yourself if it's easier than typing in the chat. If you have any questions, this could be surrounding the yoga practice or any references that either of us made. It could be anything that you've noticed in your own personal practice, or maybe noticing any of the symptoms that Kerry had mentioned. So anything at all. Okay, it feels like everyone feels complete. If anything comes to you, feel free to email either of us or both of us. We will be putting this together in a comprehensive email. I too will be offering a free consultation so that we can find out more about what it is that you're craving in your yoga journey as well. So I thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much, Kerry, for this beautiful slideshow and amazing offering. And I hope that you each took something away from it that can be really helpful for you.
Thank you, Veronique. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much.